How are y'all doing?
Good, good.
Pretty
Semester
good.
started. We're off to a good start, I think.
Yeah.
So with everything going on, but we're still making it work. Just being in the studio and working with the students is making it all worth it.
Yeah. It's important to remain hopeful because it's just like,
Mhm.
the students are here and they're persevering and they don't know what's ahead of them. They don't
No.
know what the future is holding. So it's just like we are in this together, you know what I mean? So it's just like we got to be optimistic, to sort of encourage them, and also allow them to encourage us. Like no matter what, no matter what the future holds, what it looks like, what kind of mask we got to wear now, what new variant we got now,
What sort of testing protocols are coming up? We still got it. We got to do it. We got to keep going.
That's right.
Yes. So are you guys on campus? Like, are you hosting classes on campus right now? Or
Yes, both on campus and off campus. So I also teach a Berklee online course. So, that's, like I got people from China, from, Louisiana, all, on one screen.
Oh, wow. That is amazing.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
So my next question for you both is in regards to dance, what does Black History Month mean to you?
For me, it is the celebration of our contributions to our history, to the evolution of this country. I feel like, even not necessarily thinking about sort of like dances and dance on stage, but movement as a people and our evolution as a people and all our contributions as a people. I feel it is a celebration of that.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, I also see it as like a remembrance. It's like a remembrance of that connection that we have, that direct link to the ancestors that is always with us. I mean, we get the shortest day of the month to sort of like, hey, remember, so that all through the other months we can still, hey, remember, we are our ancestors' wildest dreams, right? I don't know if that was Maya Angelou or Beyonce.
Thinking about that, yes. I was thinking about that yesterday, like, yes.
Absolutely. And there's a sense of this idea of blood memory, like it's the way we move, the way we engage with each other. It's unique to us, right? Our history is unique to us. And there is all of that history is already embedded in our bodies. I mean, I think about my ancestors, my grandparents who came to this country. My grandfather couldn't read or write and bought a duplex and brought each one of his 14 kids over one by one, from South America, from Guyana, right? And so that sort of power and strength and courage it's in my DNA. And so for me, Black History Month is really a celebration of that and the perpetuation and the continuation of that trajectory for myself. And for other Black people.
I mean, the quote Jesse Jackson, it's a chance for us to be excellent. He gave a command, a long time ago, be excellent.
Black excellence.
Yeah.
So to follow up on this question, is it widely known that dancing has its origins from the African diaspora? Like, is that something that everybody?
There's a lot of people who don't realize how they don't realize it.
Yeah.
And so
part of our mission is to educate and to, spread the word back out, respread the word, because I think, for so long, we've been taught, Kurt and I included, Europe was the center of the world, right? Europe has, always taught the rest of the world was, hey, we the center.
Starting with King Louis XIV.
King Louis XIV.
And court dances. No. That's not where it began.
It's not where it began.
It's not the only kind,
and unfortunately, that information got spread to a whole bunch of people, and they started spreading that information out to their students. So now it's the time for a reclaiming my time.
I know that.
Of, just sort of like getting history out. I know people like to talk about critical race theory, but it's just like, it's history.
It's not critical race theory.
It's history.
I mean, I understand the concept of critical race theory, but it's history. Yeah. It's having a conversation surrounding multiple truths. Right. It's like there's not only one truth, right? And so
ignore the whole other side.
Yes, we're not used to having these multifaceted conversations, these conversations where things are framed and things are presented in a way that allows for different points of view for the others. Let's just say that, for the others' point of view, and it's just as valuable as anybody else's.
And you have to talk about, I think a part of a huge problem of America and things like that is that they don't like to talk about the dirty, the sins and the guilt, of racism and slavery, but
that's self-inflicted also. It's like it's all self-inflicted. It's all, the fact that something happened and the fact that it wasn't favorable doesn't mean that it doesn't have value. Like we tell people all the time, when there's great lessons in failure. Right? Like you have to learn from failure. And the only way to learn from those things is to engage about them, to talk about them, to think about them, to actualize about them. So you can find the lessons. Not hide them in the back. That's not what not what quote unquote America was built on, right? They say that all the time, right? Like you fail, that's a great lesson. You use that and pick up the pieces and you move on, right? And so and so part of what we teach is that, American or Black dance, right? So Black dance is American dance, right? There would be no American, there'd be no jazz, there'd be no R&B, there'd be no blues if there weren't the gospel, right? Of these slaves that were colonized by Christianity when they got off the slave boats and got here. You can't talk about dance without talking about the history, because it's like our ancestors came over here already with a movement, a blood memory, a knowledge that they brought from their ancestral homes, that even though they lost their language and they lost the ability to speak through generations, and they lost those old orishas and those old gods, and they replaced it with Jesus and Christianity, the movement never died. No way, it didn't.
It stayed.
It actually remained. It shows you this idea, this power of blood memory, the power of. It's so strong.
Well, the movement and song and way of moving through the world.
That's right.
Movement never dies.
It's bigger than just sort of physical manifestations. It's how it's how you navigate.
That's right.
Right. It's really powerful when you think about it. It's like wow.
I feel goosebumps. Like so many great points right now. So you guys were speaking about how movement is like the way of the world, and like although we lost a lot of our history, like that's something that stayed with us. So is there a certain type of movement of dance that was like originated? Like, is there like a name for it? Like, teach me. I don't know.
Well, the movement in African American dances usually consist of a couple of fundamentals. So like there's the style, or the Africanist aesthetic is a very grounded style. It's very asymmetrical. It's polyrhythmic, right? So those are some of the like components, the groundwork. But traditionally, there's a jig component to a lot of Africanist movement. There is a buck component to a lot of African movement, and there's a wing where the legs go in and out kind of movement. And you can kind of see that evident in, dances like the Charleston, for instance, right? With Josephine Baker, who made the Charleston really known. But that Charleston, you can see how that evolves into something like the Kid and Play, right? So that movement, the basis of that movement streams all the way
to present day.
To present day, right? Those are the basis, the undulation of the spine, the Yanvalu. The Yanvalu was an Afro-Haitian dance that was used to worship the god Dambala, who was the snake god. And so that was done in like sort of the Afro-Haitian rituals. But then you can see how that evolves into like the worm, you know what I mean? So it's just prevalent in the breakdancing community. So like the movement doesn't guide, the context keeps changing, but the movement never dies.
Yeah.
So when you guys are talking about how like things are evolving, I wanted to know, like, do you find that dances still have originality now, especially with TikTok coming out? Or is it just like everyone's just trying to do the latest challenge and the creativity is kind of being lost as things evolve?
I think that the dances are derivatives of older variants, right? So the
You
variants.
can find, I know variants.
So they're older variants. So
you can trace lineage back to like sort of any sort of TikTok movement you see on TikTok.
Yeah,
you can trace its
and
history,
it really gets tricky. I mean, it's coming from the African diaspora, right? If you really want to go back, but it gets very passed down. Like I'll give you an example. So the moonwalk, right? A lot of people say, that's Michael Jackson's The Moonwalk, but the moonwalk was taught to Michael Jackson by a guy named Jeffrey Daniels. Jeffrey Daniels is coming out of the breakdance community. Jeffrey Daniels is getting the moonwalk from a tap dancer. Bill Bailey did the first recorded moonwalk, right? Which he called the backslide. So the moonwalk is actually coming out of the tap dance community, right? That got passed down into the breaking community, that got passed down to Michael Jackson, right? That Bob Fosse was doing, little variants of the moonwalk, but it's coming from this tap. So it's like they're variants of these things, so it's original and it's authentic in that the context has changed. But what's the saying? Ain't nothing new under the sun. It's all be done. I believe even in Beyonce's sort of Get Me Bodied, if you will, Get Me Bodied samples works from Bob Fosse's Sweet Charity. Sweet Charity, Bob Fosse is sampling works from the African American community that he was watching, right, in the saloons. But also, Get Me Bodied is also sampling from the voguing community, the breaking community, and all in this one thing. Is it original? Is it authentic?
It's also an evolution of, right?
It's an evolution of,
and it's a bombastic collection of lots of ideas. That's what's really where the innovation is coming from. It's like crossing all these boundaries to curate and say something that feels fresh and feels new. Right. Yeah. And it's like borrowing and taking from lots of different avenues in order to come up with something new and something fresh.
Yeah, which makes it fresh, it makes it fresh. And then you can kind of see like, I always think of Beyonce as almost like this Josephine Baker. I mean, because they were so alike and similar
so many ways,
and the way they were so dynamic, and the way they pulled from everything,
and the way think about Josephine Baker is that there was no social media, but yet she's able to sort of really,
have that
sort of pull wide acclaim and range.
Yeah, I think Beyonce even did a rendition where she had like a banana skirt on one of her performances, like in reference to, Josephine Baker.
I mean, if you watch her work, though, her team they're very rooted in history. Yeah. I mean, they're all about sort of celebrating Black excellence, right? And the Black lineage. I mean, if you really look at it and you look at those references, somebody's been doing their homework. Somebody's been doing their homework.
So that's interesting that you guys say this. So my background is kind of in communications and like media production. So when I look at movies or stuff or TV shows, I'm looking at it with a different lens because I have studied it, right? Like, so because you guys are obviously like amazing at dance and you have studied it, do you guys look at different choreographies, like different, like me as a regular person, I'm like, oh, wow, this looks nice. But are you like, wow, they got this from here. I can see this part,
I think I watch to enjoy. I mean, I watch to be taken away just like anybody else. Like I watch to be, but of course, we will have discussions after.
Well, yeah, we can't.
We can't ignore not being able to sort of discuss and deconstruct. But I think sometimes when I'm watching something for the first time, I want to be taken away just like anybody else. I want to have the visceral experience of watching something. I want to get a visual experience from watching something. I want to be inspired. I want to be moved as well. Yeah. So I'm really not thinking in like, technically or, theoretically when I'm watching something, will I have a conversation about it afterwards? Absolutely.
Well, I think that's also, we're like also watching it and like we're referencing like the history of it at the same time, but we are enjoying it because we're realizing that it's all a technique. Everybody has a technique. That's one of the things that we teach here is like decolonizing this thing of this Eurocentric idea of what technique is. Because back in our day, I can't believe I'm saying things like that. Back in our day, when somebody said, "Oh, she ain't got no technique," What are you saying?
What do you
saying,
mean?
oh, she doesn't have any ballet training. But
Right.
let me tell you, right? These African dancers, you know,
Are technical.
Absolutely.
Right?
Not even African dancers.
You couldn't do it.
Right. These break dancers are technical.
Yeah,
There's a
very
technique
technical.
to that.
Absolutely.
You know? It's a way of doing. It's a system and way of doing things that you have to train to do.
Yeah, but that was not the way of thinking, and which is what is changing, is evolving. The conversation surrounding what this thing called dance is broadening, it's widening, it's changing. It definitely is changing.
Well, you know, we're part of that changing. We're part of changing that
because we're changing the conversation. We're, you know, redefining what that looks like.
Yeah.
And it should be done. That should be done.
Yeah.
I love it. Yes, that's really deep. Is it common for dancers, especially those of color, to not get credit?
That's historical.
That's historic. That's in everything.
You know, I
seriously. I mean,
I think of there was an artist, there's a pop artist by the name of Little Ava. And Little Ava, she's the woman that sings "Do the Locomotion," da-na-na-na-na, locomotion. She created the steps for that, never got credit for it. Didn't even get paid the amount of money she should have got paid for making that hit single. That was a hit, you know. And she never got the credit, you know, that was due.
A lot of people.
There are a lot of choreographers, you know, that would choreograph for famous people like Fred Astaire, Vernon and Irene Castle, that would be listed as coaches on the program, but would never get credit, you know. So that's been a huge problem, you know, appropriation and, you know, not giving credit to where credit is due. That's been the biggest
throughout history
issue, you know.
I mean, and not just in dance, in all aspects, in medical field, in politics, it's so many fields. Yeah.
So, you know, which is also like very Eurocentric, because, you know, if somebody choreographs a ballet, it's a classical ballet, they get credit, it's noted, you know, it's so it's just like there's no, it's just that urban movement, it's communal. Like, no,
right,
you know, pay homage to where it belongs, right? So that's still a problem. It's still a big problem.
Yeah, big problem.
You know.
Right. My next question is, do you have a favorite Black dancer who like was so groundbreaking that they opened doors for future Black dancers?
So many people, so many
people. I mean, you know, I think significantly, you know, like, you know, Alvin Ailey, of course, is he's become sort of bigger than, you know, his name. Like a lot of people see Alvin Ailey and hear Alvin Ailey, they can't even attach it to a face.
Person, right?
It's an idea. It's an entity. you know, and nobody's done the research on this, but, you know, Alvin Ailey was actually sort of like a very important force in developing the system of liturgical dance in America.
Yeah.
You know, like nobody's done the research on this, so this is a thesis topic for somebody. But just in terms of like, you know, his rendition and showcasing of the Black church,
and
right?
Especially the Black female, for the power of the Black female figure, and all its multiplicity. Right? Black female as mother, right? Black female as wife, caregiver, as slave, as housekeeper, you know, but also Black mother, you know, gossiping in the church, Black mother who just lost her son, Emmett Till, you know, Black mother, you know, all these different facades and facets of this Black woman, you know, he kind of showcases in his work. And so, I think he has been one of those people that have really sort of like given dancers in Black and white, you know, like, no, well, Black, but just like, I am valid. I am worthy. I am excellent. Right.
You know what I mean? Alvin Ailey is still one of those most iconic, you know, coveted dance positions of this day, to where still, like you dance there and it's just like you are revered as you are the thing, you know. So I think that was really prominent for him.
There was just a film made on his life. It's on streaming on Hulu right now.
Yeah.
It's a really amazing documentary. People should definitely check it out.
The last question I have is, what is something you want people to take away, or that you want all dancers to know, or that they should know about dancing and its origins from the African diaspora?
That we are living in a time now, we were living in a magical time where we have access to the past, and it's a sin not to sort of actively engage and sort of like dig up, get your archaeology tools out, and dig up your history and learn about even, some of these African Orishas and where they've come from, because a lot of the Orishas were based on like human beings, people that actually lived in time. And a lot of the movement that is developed come off of these Orishas, that represented different qualities. Like some Orishas, about were like fire and about power, like Shango, or Ogun, or like that flows in the river, so it's just like that becomes a quality of movement that you're working with. So get in touch with your past, so that you can connect that to your present, right? And you can live in those moments and like act out all of those different qualities, not just Ogun, not just Shango, but in the funk and the vibrancy of James Brown, right? And the wit and the trick of Michael Jackson, but so that you can sort of like impart that out to people around you and to your community, so that it keeps, so that this energy, so that this idea and this knowledge is sustained. Yeah.
I would say the same thing. I would say similar. It's this, stay curious, continue to ask questions, challenge everything, challenge everything, find out, do your due diligence, research, celebrate your own history, have conversations with your parents, have conversations with your grandparents, find, and understand the stock that already lives within inside of you, and to continue to sort of to deepen where you are before you move on to the next place.